He tries to see his character profile, and a status window appears there, saying there is too much information about this character, and it converts the character profile to a character summary. He then tries to read his character summary, but grabs him by his neck. His name is Young-hyuk, and he tightly grabs him by his neck and lifts him up in the air. He asks Dokja how he is still alive, and he thinks the first way of surviving the apocalypse, and this man who is strangling him, is living proof of the first method. He is Young-hyuk, the regressor, and this is the man who will kickstart the tragedy that will turn this world upside down. A barrier has been created like there was in the subway, and they wonder what is happening on the other side. Young-hyuk asks his name, and he thinks he's so full of himself and acting like a protagonist. When he tells his name, he calls him a strange man. Jong-hyuk punches him, says he has a strong body, and says he has already figured out how to use the coins. He punches him, and Dokja thinks about how strong he is when they have only cleared one main mission and are just now clearing a submission. He thinks this is the worst. He was hoping this wouldn't happen. In the early chapters, Young-hyuk is the most dangerous character in the world of TWSA, and he's lost his humanity after having regressed 3 times already. The Young-hyuk now doesn't hesitate to do whatever it takes to get what he wants. He then asks Dokja to show him some respect, but he punches him again before he can say something. Dokja says he is younger than him, so he should be the one who should show him some respect. Young-hyuk has become cautious of him, and he is surprised that Dokja knows about him that he is a gamer. He thinks Young-hyuk was but a fictional character to him, existing in TWSA, that is, until now. Dokja says he is pretty famous and used to be a fan of his and thinks his fame was just a setting in the novel, but he is not lying when he says that he used to be a fan of his. He liked him, hated him, resented him, and cheered for him, and he was with him throughout his 3,000 episode journey. Young-hyuk is surprised that he is his fan and says he hasn't heard that in a while, and he will forgive him for his impudence, but that won't change anything. He only had one question for him and asked how he survived the subway, and Dokja knew he would ask him this. He asks him if he will let him live if he tells him that answer, and Dokja wonders what he should say to make this regressor let him live. His understanding of Young-hyuk has been increased, and there is also a window that he has unlocked level 2 of his personal skill, the Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. He reads his mind, in which he thinks only Hyunseong Lee and Namwoon Kim were supposed to survive, but Namwoon Kim is dead and other people survived instead. Dokja wonders if he can read his mind and smirks, thinking that he wants to know how he managed to survive. There are only 5 minutes left, and Dokja tells him that he cleared the scenario by killing insects, and he was able to spot the kid with insects because he fell due to an explosion in the car in front of them. Young-hyuk thinks the future has changed, and Dokja thinks it will shock him because there was supposed to be a battle to the death in subway car 3807, and only Namwoon Kim and Hyunseong Lee should have survived. He wonders if this happened because of him, and if it was because he started out by killing them with an explosion, unlike in his previous runs. However, he wonders if Dokja is still too calm for a newbie, and the world has turned upside down, and he's taking it in strike. He thinks Dokja must have killed Namwoon Kim, and he's more than just helpful but dangerous. Dokja asks him if he can let him go if he is done with his questions, and asks him to move on to Oksu Station together because they are running out of time. Young-hyuk uses his SS grade skill, the Eye of the Sage, and grabs his neck more tightly. It's the highest grade detection skill, the Eye of the Sage, and it allows him to see not only someone's attributes window, but also someone's hidden information. He doesn't know his attributes or skills. Even if Young-hyuk discovers what they are, he may also know. He activates his personal skill, the Fourth Wall, and it detects the detection of the Eye of the Sage, and his skill enables him to block the Eye of the Sage. Young-hyuk is shocked at how he has deactivated his skill and asks him how he managed to do this. The sub-scenario appears again, and the remaining time is 2 minutes and 14 seconds. He is also shocked at himself that he has a skill that can block the Eye of the Sage, while Young-hyuk thinks he has to kill him there and now. Dokja thinks he has complicated things, and there's no way he would believe him now, and he has to change his game plan. Dokja says he needs a trustworthy ally and can't clear Scenario 46 on his own. Young-hyuk asks him how he knew that, or if he is also a regressor, but he replies he can be of use to him. He thinks Dokja is not a regressor because if he were, then he would know him. Dokja tells him that he knows the future that he doesn't know, and Young-hyuk activates his lie detection skill, and it verifies that he is telling the truth. He has been shocked and wonders if another prophet exists other than Anna Croft in Korea. It is revealed that the prophet is the only attribute in TWSA that allows a character to see in the future, and the only attribute to neutralize detection skills passively. To his knowledge, one character had the prophet attribute in the world of TWSA, and he asked Dokja if he could use his future sight. He tries to persuade him, saying he knows that he has a special power and knows what will happen in the future, but he also knows that the knowledge he has of the future is incomplete. It is revealed that the regressors know the future because they have repeated their lives several times over, but their futures will change if they change the present with that information. However, all regressors will eventually reach a future they don't know unless they repeat everything they did in their past run. Dokja asks him to make him his companion so he can complete his future knowledge. He thinks someone like Young-hyuk would find it very attractive to have a prophet as a companion, and he can act as his prophet because he is the only reader of this story. Young-hyun smiles and thinks if he is indeed a prophet, it would be helpful to bring him along, not just for Scenario 46, but also for fighting the Zarathustra. He is still thinking whether he should take him or not, with only 50 seconds remaining until the end of this scenario. 10 seconds pass, and Young-hyuk makes up his mind and decides to make him his companion. He drags him behind, and they are crossing through the Deus Ex Machina bridge of even numbers. Others are still there waiting for him and wonder what has happened to him, while Young-hyun is taking him along, grabbing his collar. Dokja still can't believe he managed to convince the regressor, and he has become worn out due to excessive concentration. His personal skill of Omniscient Reader's viewpoint was deactivated, and Dokja is a bit anxious about this. However, he has done everything he could and convinced Young-hyuk in no time. Soon, they reach the last of the bridge, and Young-hyuk asks him one last question. He asks him to tell him about his future if he is a prophet. Dokja is scared and has a bad feeling about him when the serpents approach them. Dokja is worried and wonders if he will let him go or kill him there. He thinks Young-hyuk is just a psychopath, and he knows him better than anyone and says he will tell him a couple of things first. First, he is not his lackey, so he needs to treat him as his equal, and second, just as he cooperates with him, so he has to promise him to cooperate with him. Young-hyuk says he still hasn't answered him yet, but Dokja smiles and asks him to get lost from there. Young-hyuk releases him, and he falls to the ground, and he falls from the sea. Young-hyuk says he believes that he is really a prophet, but he makes him fall into the mouth of the serpent. A notification appears there saying he has failed to clear the scenario. After a while, he is still alive and is struggling to keep holding his breath, but he has to hold on because he can't pass out. He somehow manages to come to its stomach without getting ripped apart and digested. He uses his flashlight to see inside, and there are a lot of dead bodies inside his stomach. He tries to get outside and thinks Young-hyuk is just a psychopath. He wonders if this is some kind of test, and he wants him to prove his worth to him as a companion. He now understands why he is doing this, and he has never made a true companion since he failed his first ever round. Being a regressor, he was powerful, and people revered him as their savior. Because of this, he naturally became a lone wolf. To him, all humans are either his subordinates or his enemies, so this is most likely a test, and he wants him to prove himself if he wants to be treated as his equal. He opens his message log and fails to clear the scenario, and his 100 points have been deducted for the channel usage fee. There are many status windows like this there. He sits there calmly and thinks about his next schedule when the serpent starts moving, and the water inside him starts moving. According to TWSA, the stomachs of these ichthyosaurs start secreting acid around 3 minutes after they ingest their prey. In other words, he doesn't have a lot of time left, and he hears Dokibai's voice, who seems to enjoy the situation. He is surprised that Dokja doesn't seem flustered at all despite his situation, and he replies that he has been waiting for him. He thinks not only will he get out of there in one piece, but he will also obtain the power to stand as his equal. After that, he will have no choice but to accept him as his companion, while Dokibai asks him why he is waiting for him. Dokja says he has coins he has to collect from him since he failed the scenario, and Dokibai has to take his coins as a penalty. Dokibai says coins are not his life, but if he were going to take his life, then the penalty for failure would have said death instead of 3 question marks, which means there is room for negotiation. Dakibai is impressed that he has come to such a conclusion from that tiny clue, and no wonder all the constellations have their eyes on him. He says Dokja can buy his way out of failed sub-scenarios using coins. He exclaims that the price will be 5,100 coins, which is how much it will cost him to save his neck. Dokja is shocked to hear this many coins and thinks he has to be kidding him. He asks him for some negotiation because this is too expensive. Dakibai refuses and says he can go ahead and die. He exclaims that if he doesn't want to pay up, he can just call it quits there and now. Dokja gets up and asks him to kill him and thinks he won't lay a finger on him because he is drawing in quite a crowd for him right now. Right now, the constellations are having a blast because of him, and if he were just going to kill him, then he wouldn't have come all the way there to see him. Dakibai seems angry and asks what he is trying to do, and he calls him low-grade Dakibai Bihyung and asks how his career as a streamer is going. Dakibai is shocked and asks how he knows his name, and Dokja laughs and asks if the constellations have been rather stingy as of late. Dakibai gets angry and asks how a mere human can know about this, and he receives a notification that a few constellations have become suspicious of his identity. Dokja asks him to shut off the channel for a few minutes so that they can talk, and he does what he says. He then asks him to say what he has to say and asks him how he knows about the star stream when he is only a human. It is revealed that the star stream system is also known as the start stream, and it is the means by which footage is broadcast over the entire galaxy. The Dakibai are called streamers and the storytellers who bridge the two. Dokja asks him if he doesn't want to be the Dakibai king, and if he doesn't want to surpass the likes of Dokgak or Dildal and become the best streamer there ever was. He forwards his hand and asks him to enter into a contract with him, and he will make him the Dakibai king. Dakibai laughs at his demand and says he must be out of his mind, and he should have realized when he rejected all the offers from the constellations. Dokja thinks that he didn't choose any constellation during the sponsor selection right before the sub-scenario. Dakibai says he doesn't know how he knows about the star stream, but can't accept his offer. He is Dakibai, not a constellation, so he can't be his supporting constellation. Dokja replies he never asked for him to sponsor him, and he is not after his power but his channel. He reveals that he wants to enter into an exclusive contract with his channel, and Dakibai surprisingly asks him what he is saying. He wants to enter a streaming contract with him. A stream contract is a contract entered into between constellations and the Dakibus. For a share of the coins earned, a Dakibai hosts an incarnation of a constellation on its channel. Usually, incarnations have no say regarding this contract, although they are sponsored. The truth is that constellations view incarnations as slaves. Dakibai laughs and says he has got quite a sense of humor, and he doesn't know where he heard about this, but how he dares to mention the stream contract. He exclaims that Dokja doesn't have any supporting constellation, and he replies that's exactly why he should accept his offer. He asks him why the constellation joined stream channels in the first place and thinks subscribers of the star stream can be divided into two groups. The first are the thrill seekers who hop through the channels looking for entertainment, and the second are the incarnation seekers who are in search of an incarnation to sponsor. Dokja tells Dakibai that if he wants his channel to flourish, he has to satisfy at least one of the two groups, either make their stream as entertaining as possible or try to find an incarnation that interests his subscribers. Dakibai asks him how this concerns him, and Dokja says his subscriber point is only a 3-digit figure. He asks him if there was a channel that could both entertain its subscribers and showcase interesting incarnations, but Dakibai says there is no way that is possible. Dokja says constellations that are looking for the incarnation to sponsor eventually leave the channel as soon as sponsor selection is over. But what happens if there is an incarnation that refuses to take on a supporting constellation? Moreover, what if that incarnation outperforms all other incarnations despite not having a supporting constellation? Dakibai asks if this was why he didn't choose a supporting constellation, and he replies that the constellations are in an uproar right now, asking him to open the channel. They are all probably dying to know who it was that dared to stand up against the regressor. But Dakibai asks him to stop what he just said, and he is full of himself because mere humans don't stand a chance against incarnation with supporting constellations. Dokja says this is what he plans to prove to him from this moment on, and all he has to do is shut his mouth and do what he says. Dakibai thinks for a while and says they have to start with checkout since they have failed the scenario, and if he pays him 5,100 coins, he can let him live. Dokja gets up and asks him to open the channel at that moment, saying it's going to start soon. Suddenly, he is shocked to see that a hidden scenario has arrived at the moment, and its clear condition is that he has to slay the Sea Commander. Their time limit is 10 days, and the penalty for failure is death. Dokibai opens the channel and asks the constellations to calm themselves. The stream was shut down because of an error in the server, and he didn't turn it off on purpose. He exclaims that he is only a Dokibai and would be exterminated if he did something like that. Dokja checks the attribute window, looks for the things he can only buy right now, and says there should be a search function. He thinks he threatened Dokibai to make him open the Starstream cash shop, and he opens up the Dokabi shop and checks out the things he can buy at the moment. The shop can only be opened while the channel is open, and this is why he has his hands full explaining what happened. Dokibai tries to convince his constellation, and Dokja asks him for help. He thinks Dokubis are just greedy and no different from humans. He just needs to search for 2 items. He searches for the ancient dragon, and Dokibai is shocked at his demand and asks how he knows about it. Dokja replies he just said any cool name that came to his mind, and it is revealed that it is an SS grade item, and its price is 1.5 million coins, but it is currently not in stock. According to TWSA, he thinks the owner of this heart is in Italy, and he is a lucky guy because his sponsor is filthy rich and bought it for him. He then looks for Archdemon's Eyeball and White Star Weapon Aura, and at last he buys bags of mucus and 4 thorns, and Dokibai asks him what use he has for those miscellaneous items. Dokja replies this is what he has to find out, and these 2 are some cheap items, and their price is 100 coins. He has spent 800 coins altogether, and Dokibai says there are no refunds. He receives a notification that the secretive plotter constellation is curious about his plan, and another constellation, the Abyssal Black Flame Dragon, is displeased with his every move. Dokibai is also angry with him and closes his channel. He says he didn't forget that he hasn't agreed to accept his offer yet. Dokja says they agreed to negotiate the terms of the contract only after he had successfully cleared this scenario. Dokibai takes his leave, says he will see if he can clear this scenario, and reopens his channel. After that, he thinks there isn't much time until the stomach acid is secreted, and he takes out a thorn. His aim is to attack the serpent from inside so that he can make it out from there alive. He then is ready to attack the serpent, while on the other side, he is swimming calmly in the sea. Suddenly, the serpent roars in a prominent voice with pain because Dokja has stabbed a thorn in his body from inside with his full power. He stabs it in many parts of his body so that he feels a large amount of pain. It has been a long time since he was inside his body, and he wonders if he overestimated himself. After all, he is just an ordinary reader of Dokja and not the story's protagonist. He wonders if his mother is fine and thinks she should be fine since she is the mother of all people. He is getting tired and thinks the world before wasn't all that great either, but at least he didn't have to risk his life in the stomach of a giant fish. He has sent all the acidic juice outside with the help of thorns and is hanging with the help of another thorn. Suddenly, Dokibai appears there and says he should have handed it to him. He also receives notification that several constellations are impressed by his survival skills and have gifted him 100 coins. 4 days have passed since the hidden scenario, and he is still inside the serpent's stomach. Dokibai says it was unexpected because he didn't have any idea that he would use the thorns like that. He seems in a terrible condition and falls to the stomach, and with this, the hidden scenario has ended. He has received 9,000 coins as a reward, and is the first to hunt a Tier 7 sea monster successfully. He has also received 1,000 coins as an achievement reward and is happy that he is still alive. Dokibai tells him that stone hogs usually live on coastlines and prey on small sea creatures. They use their special thorns to pierce and then dry their prey to death. But he never thought that Dokja would use the thorns in this manner. A few constellations smile knowingly, and they now understand his decision. Dokibai says he never knew that the mucus of the hammer seahorse could be used as protection against the ichthyosaur's stomach acid. Dokja remembers that before the stone hog's thorn began working, he covered himself in what was left of the hammer's seahorse's mucus. He then drank the bodily fluid of the ichthyosaur that was funneled through the thorn to appease his hunger. Because of the fluid, his stamina level had increased. After that, it was a test of sheer willpower. He tells Dakibai that hammer seahorses are ichthyosaurs, so they have evolved to create a special mucus, and that's how he managed to survive in a pool of stomach acid. He says he is just helping Dakibai because he seems to be struggling. Meanwhile, an attribute window shows that his pain is partially nullified by his personal skill, the fourth wall. Dakibai says it was a fantastic survival drama, and Dokja asks him to open the Dakibai shop, and he stabs the thorn again in the serpent's body and finds the ichthyosaur's nucleus. He gives this to Dakibai and asks him to put this up for trade at the Dakibai auction house, and he won't trade this with anything else but broken faith. He wants to say something more, but Dakibai stops him and closes his channel for their conversation. They then make a stream contract agreement, and Dakibai says he wasn't sure at first, but watching him clear the hidden scenario helped him make up his mind. Dokja is surprised to see a complete written contract, and Dakibai says humans like this kind of thing. He thinks this is supportive, and he is getting a better deal than expected. He then says the contract is missing the most crucial part, which is the ratio, and Dakibai asks him to make it 50-50, and he won't charge him for channel usage to boot. They will split all the coins he is gifted in half, but Dokja says he is not an idiot. In reality, a Constellation's incarnation makes an appearance on the Dakibai's channel, and the Constellation shares the coins gifted by other constellations with the Dakibai, who owns the channel. Dokja says he doesn't have a supporting constellation, and when constellations gift coins to an incarnation who doesn't have a supporting constellation, they have to pay a hefty commission to the Dakibai. He is sure that Dakibai has already made quite a profit thanks to him. In return, he will take all the coins, and Dakibai should be fine with the commission, and he will not give him a single coin. Dakibai shouts at him and asks him to take 70%, but Dokja says either he takes all, or he will move on to another channel, and he heard Gildan's been doing well for himself these days. Dakibai seems so angry with him, but Dokja doesn't care about this and asks him if he can't see that the constellations are complaining. He receives notifications that the constellations complain due to the prolonged advertisement, and Dakibai agrees to his conditions. Dokja says he demands one more thing, the contract fee, and asks him to give 5,000 coins. After some time, he comes out of the serpent's stomach, and it's the first time he's breathing fresh air in 4 days. He thought it would only take him 2 days. Still, 4 days isn't bad, considering it took Younghyuk 4 days on his 4th round. He also managed to sign a streaming contract with Dakibai and made quite a few coins in the process, so it's not a bad start. It's funny that he could never get anyone to sign anything before, but he has become somewhat extraordinary just for having read TWSA. His personal skill, the fourth wall, is still active, and he remembers when he told Dakibai that he couldn't access his attribute window and asked him to fix it. Dakibai tries to use system interference on him, and Dokja activates his personal skill, the fourth wall, and he doesn't expect this skill to block even Dakibai's interference. After that, he steps into the area of the second main scenario. He receives notification that the scenario area is highly contaminated and instructs him to hold his breath and quickly get underground. He tries to run away, but has been exposed to the poisonous fog, and the constellation, Abyssal Black Flame Dragon, smiles insidiously.